today. I'm very happy that today we are. I'm happy today that we are joined with an incredible lady that's going to take us through the resilience leadership tools to inspire change in Africa. I hope all of us are looking forward to that. And we have Thea Khama. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing it right. Thea
Yes, that's
Khama.
correct.
You're welcome. You are a coach and author. So I will go through a brief bio of Thea just for all of us to know exactly what she does and a leadership journey as well. So Thea Khama, she's an entrepreneur and consciousness coach, and she's an author as well. Thea Khama is a seasoned entrepreneur, consciousness coach, and author with a proven track record of fostering resilience, leadership, and innovation across diverse industries. Thea was born in California but grew up in Africa, where she famously married a member of the Khama family and had children. She currently resides in the Kingdom of Estawini. I don't know what I'm pronouncing
Eswatini.
right, where she continues to spend most of her Oh yes, where she continues to spend most of her time. With a background in business development and personal growth, she brings a unique perspective to cultivating sustainable strategies for success. Experience span through entrepreneurship, representing artistic, event logistics and implementation, conservation, wellness facilities, sport clubs in Botswana, and professional coaching, empowering individuals and team their potential and achieve measurable results. Her work has had a meaningful impact on personal and organizational growth, emphasizing resilience, adaptability, and forward-thinking solution. She has survived and thrived despite a difficult upbringing, political persecution, close encounters with premature death. This has propelled her to be involved in promoting various charitable initiatives, cultural groups, and athletic clubs in Africa over the past 3 decades. With a global outlook and a commitment to empowering communities, trauma coaching for success, and always a focus on conservation, wildlife, and environment, Thea offers visionary insights that bridge the gap between business acumen and conscious leadership, making her an asset in strategic decision making and transformational growth initiative. Thea, once again, we are glad to be having you, and please, the floor is now yours. You're
Thank you
welcome.
so much, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
So
welcome.
I am very pleased to be here with Africa Rebirth. I was made aware of your organization recently by Enoch, who contacted me
Mhm.
via LinkedIn and offered me this opportunity to share with you some of my insights on resilience and leadership in the African context, of course. And so
Yeah.
that's what we're going to be doing today. And I'd like to be able to share my screen. Am I booked in as an admin here? I'm going to try to share the screen.
Yeah, try it.
Okay. Because I have a whole presentation for you guys ready and waiting. Let me just take this down, exit that, and I will share with you shortly the presentation. I thought it was up, but it will come together. Technology. So we're going to share the slides. So I've entitled today's presentation, Resolve to be Resilient. Can you see the screen yet?
Not yet.
No, not yet, not showing.
Oh, okay, it's not showing. So I think you have to make me an admin or a host. So I will just share along as we go, and then once you guys have been able to do that, you should be able to see my screen. Let me just escape this. Oh, I'm a co-host now. Great. So I think I should be able to share my screen. with you all. Let's see. Hold. Okay. Share. It's still not being allowed. Well, let's work on that. I think you need to make me able to share as a host. Okay, here we go.
Or you can, hey Tia, you can just
Yes.
you can send it to me. I can share if it doesn't help on your side.
Okay.
Yeah, you are an admin, so you should be able to share for all participants.
Okay. It's just coming up with advanced sharing options. You can share. Trying to share, but it's not. Documents. Let me try with a document.
Is it a PDF?
Yeah, no, it's a presentation. It's a PowerPoint presentation.
Be a bit.
Yeah,
Okay.
possibly I can send to you, and I can carry on with the call, and then maybe you could share your screen with the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, so please, will you share your email then with me on the chat box? I'm so sorry, people, but it's really a full presentation I'd like to be able to share with you today. So I need to be able to see the presentation, and you need to see it too. Screens, let's see.
Send it to
Okay,
Beza.
so Daniel.
Beza's for correspondence.
Beza.
Yeah, Beza.
Okay. So Beza, if you could WhatsApp me that email of yours, that would be great.
Sure. Okay.
As I don't have the email there. So in the meantime, a little bit about myself and my background. I'll just share with you as I'm doing this and waiting for Beza's email to come through. What I'm doing currently is I'm in Eswatini, and I'm working online as a coach. This has been a journey of mine for the last, I would say, 10 years now in the coaching field, and also working in business previous. And I've also been, involved in conservation as was shared. But my real story comes from growing up as a child all over Africa. I was born in California, but I lived all over Africa, in East Africa, West Africa, and Southern Africa. And this was because my parents were moving about. And so there was a lot of change, a lot of upheaval. Both parents divorced, and there was little money at times. There was times when I had to go out on my own, and I was 15 years old, and I had to find my way in the world on my own. No parents were with me. And so I learned resilience. I learned how to, be a resilient person. And that took me into so many things later on in life, in business and in entrepreneurial areas of growth, that it's just been a real key element and pivotal part of my life. And so I thought that that would be the best thing to share with you today. Okay, I'm just putting in the email to you now. But also because I understand the global space and I understand the African space, having lived in Africa for the last 35 years continuously, and having raised my children here. So I am going to hopefully ask for some of your input today, because I think that the more we share, and we share our stories and we share where we're coming from and what we're doing, the better. And I think that's what this platform is all about, is sharing those experiences. 1 second while I just focus on this, sending this document. Okay, Besa, it's going to go through a Google Drive link because it's quite a large presentation. So it's coming through. It's going to come through to you just now. So yeah. So this is where I am coming from, and also recently, having been involved in political persecution in the way of we were living in Botswana, and the previous government there took a disliking to the former president, which was my brother-in-law, and they decided to go after all of us, each one of us, and in turn, who were family members, and we sort of were caught up in the middle of this drama, and actually, put into prison cells and so forth, and not in a good way, very inhumane. And eventually we took ourselves out of the country. We left the country, and this is the leading family in the country, my husband's family, who his father was the first president of Botswana, and a visionary leader, and one that everyone acknowledged and as such. And this is the kind of leadership style that they grew up with, which was visionary and resilient, and pushed new narratives and made democracy work in Botswana, which was a model country. And now it is being restored. The nation of Botswana, the people have voted, and they voted out that president who was doing these things. Sounds like, no. Now it's telling me it sounds like I've switched to French. Oh my goodness, what's happening with technology today?
What, are you able to send the email?
Yes, I have sent it to Besa. It should have gone through. And so during this time, we had to leave the country, and we didn't know what was going to happen. And so we were dealing with that uncertainty. And I think that uncertainty is a big part of resilience, and how you survive through these kinds of challenges, and how you maintain yourself and your values and your integrity throughout these kind of challenges. And I'm sure many of you have faced different things in life where you thought it was the end of the world, but you got up and you kept going. And now maybe you are trying to start businesses and start different activations, or possibly you have NGOs or NPOs. I don't know who all today I'm talking to, but hopefully you can share in the chats where you're from and what kind of industry you're in. And are you entrepreneurial? Are you political? What is your theme? so we can get a good idea of who we're talking to today. Okay. So, have you managed, Besa, to receive the document?
No, I haven't received it, but I have shared you another email. Maybe try that.
Okay, so
you can also post it in the chat. If you can
all
post
right,
in the
try
chat.
doing that.
Yeah. In the chat box, there is where you can upload the file, the document.
Okay, I need to send it to everyone or to send it to Daniel.
I think you can send to everyone.
You
Daniel, I've
can
sent
drop
it to
it in
you.
the chat. Just upload it.
In the chat? Yeah.
There is
Yeah, everyone can get it, yes.
yeah. So there is in the chat box, there is where there is a function where there is file. So you click there and you can upload a document.
Yes, I have sent you the document in a direct message. It's still coming through. It's a big document.
Through my direct message, let me see.
Okay, so we have a Pacific social worker and human rights advocate from Canada. That's wonderful. Right up my alley. Who else have we got?
Did you send the
Please
document in the chat?
I did. It's still uploading. I can see it's only partway uploaded to your chat. And Iris from Botswana, and she's a program officer. Hi, Iris. And I see a few people from Botswana that I know. Hello, how are you? Good to see you. And some of you are all the way from China. And Suleiman, journalist and founder of Voices Beyond Silence Initiative for Justice and Empowerment in Nigeria. Lerato, South Africa. Wonderful. Oh, what amazing people are here. Bonki from Nairobi, Kenya. Oh, I'm so happy to be here with all of you. Thank you for having patience here while we get this going. It's really going to be exciting, I promise. Okay. Happy from Tanzania, working with ACT Tanzania Forum as a communications officer. A lot of communications people here. Importance leadership. These are amazing initiatives, people.
Sorry to interrupt here. So you can also send it to LinkedIn as well if it doesn't upload quickly. So can you try that mechanism as well?
LinkedIn.
Why can we do the? Can you do the? Is it okay? Because time is going as well.
Go ahead.
Do the presentation. You can share a document later.
Yes,
Yeah.
I can go ahead with it, but you just won't have the visuals. So that's what we will do. So I entitled this presentation "Resolve to be Resilient." It's resilient leadership tools to inspire change in the African context. And I wanted to start off with us understanding resilience and stability and what we are talking about here. And so there was a quote that is, what is to give light is to endure burning. And it's a quote by Viktor Frankl. He's a Holocaust survivor who endured some of the most horrific times in Nazi concentration camps. And that quote, what is to give light is to endure burning, to me was so profound, because it shows that we have to burn bright, we have to burn through to bring out our light. And it's something that I align to. And I saw also that in the Africa context, Nelson Mandela aligned to that same ideology. And so I just wanted to read out to you one of his quotes that says, "I have walked that long road to freedom. I have tried not to falter. I have made missteps along the way. But I have discovered the secret that after climbing a great hill, one only finds that there are many more hills to climb. I have taken a moment here to rest, to steal a view of the glorious vista that surrounds me, and to look back on the distance I have come. But I can only rest for a moment, for with freedom comes responsibilities, and I dare not linger, for my long walk is not ended." And that was at the time of him being inaugurated and coming along into office, and what a long road he still had to go, and how resilient was the man. And it's the same thing of giving light to endure, and enduring the burning to give light. So in resilience, the ability to adapt, to recover, and grow stronger in the face of our challenges. That brings the stability, maintaining our balance and a strong foundation when there is uncertainty. And those 2 points I just wanted to highlight at the beginning. So we, as we unpack resilience in this format. And then, what are we talking about really? We're talking about the ability to adaptability, if you will, and the ability to collaborate and network with one another, because that is something that most resilient people need to be able to do. If you're an island by yourself, it's very difficult. That's where, I'll speak to toughness and the difference between toughness and resilience later on. But that's where toughness comes in, but toughness alone is not going to take you through. The difference of resilience, being able to open up, be vulnerable, collaborate, network with others, and work together for change or for whatever it is that you're trying to do, is another key point that I think sometimes we miss. And then I brought in that the internal drive, you have to have that internal drive to persevere despite setbacks or challenges. And where does that come from? So where are we tapping into when we talk about that internal drive? Also, we use integrity and mindset reframing. And I'm going to do an exercise later on with any volunteer who wants to reframe their mindset on a particular issue or challenge. And so we use that also to maintain clear, helpful, and visionary perspective when we are being resilient. And then the ability to remain rooted or connected to our values. It's also very important. So during the time when I was going through that persecution, and I actually got put into a cell, and it was not a good situation. There was a lot of human rights violations happening inside the cell with people, and the situation there, human excrement all over the floor for probably more than 6 months. That kind of situation, and not knowing if I'd ever get out, because I was not told one way or another whether I would be out. Other times, I've been held at gunpoint, by thieves and people trying to steal from our business, and had guns held to my head and not known, okay, would I survive this or not? How in that moment are we resilient? How are we staying connected? And both of those times I can share that, it's like I went into light more than my dark. I went there. I went and remained rooted to who I am, to who I want to be to people. And I behaved in that manner towards the people that were persecuting me or, attacking me. And that I ended up turning out very well for me, I can say. So being able to remain connected to our values, but how do we do that? So we'll unpack that more. Also, honesty with self and others. So if you can't be honest with yourself as a leader and admit your mistakes and look and reassess and see where maybe you need help, then it's going to be hard for you to stay the course. And then avoiding temptations. So as we know, in Africa, we struggle with a lot of corruption and temptation. And is that sustainable? Have we seen that being sustainable? Is it something, we need to talk about that. I think it needs to be brought to light. So how we avoid those temptations and how, we still stay connected to those values. And then, again, I hope I can't see you right now, so because I'm looking at my presentation, but I hope I'm smiling and alive to you. You can see me on the screen. Okay, so the key characteristics of resilience being a growth mindset and viewing challenges as opportunities to learn and to grow. So this is what I have trained my Teen Spirit cohort. So I have a group of young people. It's like 800 of them have gone through the program in the last 15 years. But they were small groups of 20, and we worked together on their mindset and viewing challenges as opportunities to learn and grow. I also did this with my staff at my my places of work, and I also started a cycling group where we got young Botswana men and women to get involved in cycling, and now that has been carrying on and going extremely well, and it's a great a new sport in the country that's come up, and with them as well, having that growth mindset, always talking to them about viewing challenges, opportunities. When you lose, you take it as a learning curve, and not as a failure and as a complete, I'm going to hide my head in the sand after that. No, you get back on the bike and you go. So perseverance and grit, staying committed to your goals, and even despite any setbacks. And that is where the toughness comes in. So toughness, I was talking to my husband earlier, and he said, I don't think it's toughness versus resilience or resilience versus toughness, because toughness is part of the resilience. But if you have toughness standing on its own, I was arguing that, it's not going to work out because you don't have the emotional intelligence and you won't be able to have that staying power going on. So perseverance and grit is needed. Staying committed to your goals and staying committed to what it is you want to create. And then having that internal locus of control, believing you have the power to influence your outcomes. You need that to be a resilient leader. You've got to be able to go back inward and believe in yourself, and you've got to keep nurturing that in yourself to be, the powerful person that you want to show up as. And sometimes we're not, and we have to take time out. And as Madiba was sharing in that quote that I read earlier, he said, I've taken time to stop and rest and look out at what I've achieved before and what the view is going forward. So I think that's also a critical component. So it's huge. Resiliency is huge, and I'm sure a lot of social workers, those of you who work in this field, know how big it is and how deep this can go. Optimism is the final characteristic that I've highlighted here. but of course there's so much more. But optimism being seeing possibilities despite tough situations. So still being able to, it's different than having the growth mindset, but it's part of having the growth mindset, if you will. So the optimistic person is always saying, you know, there's light at the end of the tunnel. I can see that this too shall pass. This too will end. I will get to the other side. The grass is not always greener. I have to stay here, but I can see there's light at the end of the tunnel. So any questions or thoughts on any of this that are coming up for any of you? Okay. No?
Yeah, I think you're good. Yes, you may proceed. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you, Bessa, have you managed to receive this or not? No? I guess my voice will carry us through.
Yeah.
Somebody's entered a waiting room there. Okay. Right. So carrying on. Okay. So my experiences, I think, have taught me foresight and flexibility are key. So being prepared. I think when I was a child and we were moving from country to country, and there were so many different areas and elements of change going on around me all the time, and I was in different cultures and different language settings, and I, you know, different skin color, you know, I was the only white person in the situation, not the other way around, which is the usual, right? That you would feel that you are standing out in the global context, but I felt that I stood out, you know, as the only, you know, person who was light skinned in whatever school I was in or whatever, wherever I was, and couldn't speak languages and things like that. So being able to be prepared and thinking ahead and planning for situations where maybe I wasn't going to know the language or wasn't going to know, you know, I needed to know how to get to school, how to use a taxi, those kinds of things. So that prepared me for resiliency, like especially in Niger. I lived in West Africa, Niger, in Niamey, and that was during the time I was 11 to 13 years old, and I speak about that in my book as well. Again, so being prepared, always being prepared, always having a plan B or something else that could happen if something happens. And but not focusing only on that, you know. Also learning from failure, the opportunity to innovate and improve myself through areas where I felt that, you know, I didn't do so well, or I didn't make the grade, or, you know, and I felt there was failure on my part. I chose to innovate and improve in those areas, or also learning from other people's failures, whereby then I said, oh, I can come in with an entrepreneurial business idea here, and or start, you know, the cycling club, or start campaigns for conservation or environmental concerns. Learning from that and innovating from that is an amazing, let me say, highlight of having resilience. And then collaboration and inclusivity to strengthen and involve others. It's the most powerful gift of all for me, I think. And, you know, I'm kind of actually a loner. I prefer to be on my own, and doing my own thing, but I am great as a leader in a group of people, but I have learned how to collaborate. I have been in the coaching experience, especially in the consciousness coaching space. We had to serve in order to, so giving service all the time and learning to work with others who were telling me what to do when I'm usually the one who's calling the shots. And so I put myself through that on purpose, and then the last one that my experience also taught me is harnessing indigenous knowledge. So I believe that the people of the land, the people who have been in a place first, have indigenous knowledge that they can share with us. And that is going to be contextually relevant with solutions and sustainable solutions that we don't recognize in our modern day thinking approaches. And so I really believe that we need to go back to the people of the land and leverage knowledge from there. And this is going to make Africa be a resilient continent. It's the youngest continent in the world. I don't know if you guys are all aware of that, but it is the youngest continent. And so, for example, the median age in Africa is 19.7 years old, making it, super young. And I think this can be harnessed for the good. And we don't always see it that way. Like the elders will like to keep the youth down, saying, oh, they're not ready, they need to be. But then are the elders actually mentoring the youth? Are we? And how much? And that's why I think I wanted to mentor in the space, and that was a free program that I was doing, by the way. It was a passion program. So it was something that I felt was so needed, that there were kids that had been suffering from abuses at home. They had been left through the HIV pandemics, and they didn't have families, so they were on their own, trying to make it. And I understood how that felt, and what is needed and what I didn't have. So that pushed me into that space to mentor. And I wish that we could just create more mentorship. And I love what you're doing here, because that's what it is. It's all about is sharing and mentoring. So the average age of heads of state, by the way, is 62 years old. And so are their policies going to resonate with the younger population as a result? It's a question we need to look at, especially if you're in the policy making sphere. And then also, I just wanted to say that the gradual rise of females in leadership has come up nicely, but we're not even halfway there in Africa. So from 85, it was 9.8%. And then we get up to 2021 and to now, there's like 24% women holding parliamentary seats across the continent. But 24% out of, how many people, and why is that? And what is happening there? What is happening? It's a question. I'm going to throw it to the floor. I'd love to see people, their responses, and maybe you can say something to that in the chat. And, Daniel, I'd love you to share if there's something in the chat like that, people sharing their ideas on these things. Please just interrupt me, come into the space and just share what's in the chat for me, because I can't see both of things at the same time.
Yes, I think just need to present. When you're done, then you can have a session for questions or some brief contributions later. Yes. Thank you. We're enjoying it. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then the idea of this resilience versus toughness and resilience, not versus, but toughness with resilience. So I had a great slide for it. So on one side, I have resilience, and one side I have tough. So the resilient person one of the characteristics is adaptability, as we spoke of earlier. And then on the side of toughness, that would be, it would translate to rigid. So a tough person is rigid. They are gonna push through no matter what. They are let me say, planted there. They are planted. And whereas the resilient one sees, okay, the ground is moving under my feet, there's an earthquake happening, I need to move and be adaptable and move. The tough person might stay there and not recognize that. Okay, and that speaks to emotional awareness of resilient people. They have grown to be emotionally aware. Okay, they either through because of having to be tough and having to experience that that doesn't work, and then becoming adaptable because of that and flexible because of that, or because they've trained it and they understand it and they're connected to their inner resources. The tough person will show up as inflexible or detached. Sometimes they could just push through. They don't care. It's like, I don't care what the workforce is saying. I'm just going to do it my way. And this is my way, the highway. This is it. I'm detached. I'm tough. And I can weather the storm by myself. Whereas the resilient person is growth oriented. They want to see everybody moving forward. They want to see everybody getting a share where possible. And they are also support seeking. They are not just self-reliant. And they are hopeful and optimistic in their approach. Whereas a tough person can be persistent without any emotion attached, if you get that difference. And then the self-regulating person also self-regulates when there's anxiety and fear and issues. They will self-regulate. This is what will carry them on sustainably throughout like many challenges and obstacles, is they will keep self-regulating. Whereas the tough person has surface strength, but they don't have the staying power because of the lack of emotional awareness and growth orientation. And then, so resilience is summed up, focuses on adapting, learning, and recovering, often involving flexibility and emotional intelligence, while toughness emphasizes enduring and pushing through difficulties, and often has an unyielding and self-reliant approach. Toughness is like a stone. It endures the pounding, but risks cracking under extreme pressures. And then resilience is more like bamboo, which bends in the storm, and it grows stronger after the storm. Okay. So the current landscape in Africa, as I see it, and probably you have a lot more to add to it, but the current landscape is the macrocosm that we'll talk about, and then we come to you, who are the microcosm personally. So it's got a lot of real challenges. One is the COVID-19 recovery. We've been going through that. We're getting there, but there's still work to be done. There's also the insecurity in many countries, political, economic, food, extreme weather, climate change, violent extremism in areas of Africa, autocracy, dictatorship, corruption scandals, ongoing tribal conflicts and religious disputes, which pit African against African, and these are real challenges that we're facing. And I think that most of you here, from what I could see in the chat and see from where you're coming from, you are trying to change that landscape. And the power to you to keep going, because the more of us that are doing it, the more of us are contributing. We're going to change it. We're going to make it a difference. Other challenges you may be facing are lack of employment, lack of funding, systemic inequality, and barriers to participation. Education misalignment, which I say misalignment because, again, it takes us back to how much indigenous lore is being put into our curriculums, how much truth is there, how much is it African centered, and how much is just Western, rhetoric, and from other places which it doesn't relate to the country or to the place that it's in. So I think there's education misalignment as one of the issues that needs to be addressed in being a resilient Africa in the global scheme of things, right? And then healthcare concerns are rife. My son is involved in healthcare, in bringing solutions to Africa from overseas, and we've seen some horrific situations with healthcare in Africa. Then there's climate and environmental degradation, which is happening everywhere in the world, but it's also happening here. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of things, but they're like small initiatives. We need much bigger, more people involved. So a paradigm shift, and there's a great quote that I have here. It says, it's true to say that infrastructure can improve resilience, but also that we need to enhance the resilience of infrastructure. So again, speaking to the healthcare side, there's a lot of problems with infrastructure there. And we need to improve that infrastructure to also make ourselves more resilient in terms of delivering a good service to the citizens. Okay, so your typical strategies for building resilience are financial stability, learning to budget and manage and cash flow, etc., as well as diversify your income streams. And of course, your emotional and mental stability, which is my area of expertise. So, I'll speak to that today. And then building strong networks, which you're doing here, and creating systems and processes for task allocation, contingency planning. This is like if you've got a business or an operation that you're doing, and even in a home setting, creating those systems and processes, planning for the unexpected. I mean, we got all hit with the COVID thing unexpectedly, boom, and we were all out in the world. So let's be prepared for things, but not anxious. I'm not trying to make anybody anxious here, or tap into your anxiety about what could happen. But I'm just saying, just be prepared, have certain things in place for your family, for your friends, for your countries. And then use of practical tools like Notion or Google Sheets or whatever you need to stay organized. So taking on technology is part of the typical strategies for building resilience. And then going beyond endurance, I talk about emotional intelligence during times of resilience. Again, we come back to adaptability, which is involving like turnarounds. Can you turn something around and innovate your response to perceived obstacles? Create innovative responses. And again, we need to train our brains to stay to new ideas and perspectives, and to really listen well to how others are thinking, feeling, and what they truly want. Sometimes I don't think that happens. I think people go ahead with either they're not training their brains at all, and they're just going day-to-day living, and a lot of people are doing that. But so are politicians, so are people in the governance arena. they are not listening well. They are just going with their rhetoric, and they think that's the best way, and they're not staying open and training themselves to have new ideas or accept new ideas, especially from the youth, who I think have amazing ideas. I've heard the most incredible things. I have one youth who's she went through the program, but later she just she's going from strength to strength in terms of she's farming, doing worm farming and horticulture, and Botswana, where we were living from, it really has very little arable land, and it's a desert situation, and so it needs initiatives like hers. So she tried to come through to government about this years ago, and it's just like, oh, she's too young, nobody wanted to really listen. But now they are taking it up, and they're starting to listen, and she's getting traction, and she's leading in her area, and it's really amazing to see. And she's just like made so much more land arable just in a few years, using this technology of basic indigenous technology, which is getting those worms back into the ground, and the earthworms, and letting them do their job. So staying open to learn to view change as an opportunity rather than a threat. And a lot of times people feel threatened. And I think when we deliver to people, we need to be mindful that they are not feeling threatened, because when people feel threatened, they shut down. And so, for example, when I do my coaching work, I really work with people and keep the everything flowing, keep it open, make them feel comfortable, and that they have confidentiality and support, and that I'm not judging them in any way for anything that they're saying. It's very important for our resiliency not to feel the threat. So we have to self-regulate for that within our own scenario. But when we have to be reminded to build resilience in the nations and to build resilience in the continent, we should be able to listen to one another and stay open and not threaten one another with ideas and saying your idea is wrong, mine is right. And putting people down for not knowing, or their other agendas. So resilient leaders may shift organizational goals to align with new economic realities rather than persisting with unsustainable. That again is adaptability, speaking to that. And then resilience in nature, just to be reminded of nature in all of this, because we get high up in the mind and we get high up in ego. But if we could come back to nature every time and remind ourselves how nature is following the course, if we can kind of emulate that in what we do and how we listen, and when we speak and when we don't speak, and when we rest and when we work. Coming back to ideas of nature and how that is playing a role, I think is really, that it's something that's after my heart. So I always do that. It's like the tree that finds its roots through the rocks, and or whose trunk bends, without breaking, and who follows a different path according to what is happening around it, right? What is happening in its space. So many citizens are creating, like yourselves, are creating platforms and networks, and we have to, get that strong labor force going, and to harness the intelligence of their innovative and fresh perspectives. So, like, I just wanted to share with people about In Uganda, the youth parliament provides a platform for young people to discuss issues affecting them and propose solutions directly to policymakers. M-Pesa, mobile money, revolutionized financial inclusion across the continent. Rwanda has invested in youth-focused initiatives like Youth Connect, Africa Summit, which provides training, mentorship, and access to global networks for aspiring leaders and entrepreneurs. And I don't know if any of you are part of any of these, but also these are some that I just like saw and I said, these are exciting initiatives. Platforms like She Leads Africa, providing some online training and mentorship to young African women aspiring to become business leaders. And then, so there's hope, there's inspiration, there's activity, thrivability, economic adaptability. Like, for example, African leaders often facing volatile economic conditions, including currency devaluation, fluctuating commodity prices, and limited access to global markets. In Rwanda, they've got the economic transformation that happened after 1994, the genocide there, and they embraced technical, tech innovation and focused on building digital infrastructures and knowledge-based economy. So they're now one of our fastest growing economies. Environmental and climate change adaptability has also been in Kenya with the green energy leadership adopted by investing heavily in renewable energy. Now they today have 90% of their electricity coming from renewable resources, which is, again, resilience. That's building resilience in a country as a whole. Social and political, we have adaptability there. For example, Nelson Mandela and other leaders navigated that transition from apartheid to democracy by adopting inclusive reconciliatory approaches, like the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as we know it, and also in the cultural adaptability side of things. Botswana, their governance model has incorporated traditional systems like the Kotla, which is the community consultation forum that we have there, and people come together and they speak out issues. This is a consultative solution, and they've incorporated that into the modern democratic governance. And that fosters inclusivity and representation. And it was nearly dying out, but we're not letting it die out because I think it's very powerful. It helps the people feel represented. Where sometimes, if you look at democracy as a whole, and I'm not saying I don't want to get political here, but if we look at democracy as a whole and we see, okay, 50% of the population is disagreeing with what's happening with the current government that has been brought in by 51, like let's say it's 49% of the people, and then 51% have voted this group in, or not really voted, and maybe it's been rigged and that person's in there like that. You have that situation where not everybody is represented. So I think that building resilience in Africa, we need to look at those models as well. And I don't know, I've always thought of like, why can't we have councils, of people and represent all facets of the country that way, in some way. But I've never worked it out in my brain completely. That's for someone else. But yes, thrivability centers around also common languages. And I'm sure you've been in other spaces to talk about that and how does that happen? Because Africa, for example, if we are going to talk about thrivability in the global space as well as in our own space as a continent, that's one area where Botswana did very well because they had 2 languages only. I mean, okay, there's more languages in the country, but Setswana and English were the national languages, and literally everybody pretty much speaks the same language, so we can all, share. And I think that's been critical to the sustainability of democracy in the country. To be quite honest, I think that's a big factor of resilience there, in terms of democracy. Okay, so almost coming to the end of this part of the presentation, and then we're going to do some interactive activity. So true resilience is practiced, right? What we can learn from these examples that have been shared earlier on, and what makes these ones stand out. So I think going through it, I thought, okay, you have a thought, you have an idea, you have an impulse, a passion for something, a desire for something, and then you have a decision to make about that. Am I going to do something about it, or am I going to sit back and let it take its course? In that decision, those people, who took those initiatives have made a decision, and they've made a decision on their values, on their passions, their desires, and they've taken a commitment then, despite any risks that might be there. And they've taken action on those commitments that they've made. And I think that's what makes these leaders stand out, these initiatives stand out, and go forward. So I think true resilience is practiced, and we can agree on that, but I don't think it's like something that's necessarily born in us. We acquire it, and we can develop it in ourselves. If you have the awareness of all these things, you can start to develop it more. An integral leadership inspires us because it sets temptation aside, to the temptation to enrich oneself. Yes, you can still enrich yourself as long as your project is enriching others. It's gonna be there for something, for the greater good, and for the common good, let's say, and it creates a difference. Then absolutely, take in as much as you can. You are allowed to be abundant. Nobody is saying people are not allowed to be abundant, but I think to be resilient, we need to be thinking for the common good as well. That's my take on it. And last thing is, how can you leverage this understanding of resilience and get better at what you do, and prepare for the unknown, or ride any crisis, and blossom where you're planted. So we have some African proverbs I want to share. There are no shortcuts to the top of the palm tree. It's a Cameroonian proverb, and it means to achieving success requires effort and perseverance. There are no easy paths to the top, right? And of course, there are some easy paths to the top, but there are no shortcuts to the top of the palm tree if you're a resilient leader. And little by little, the bird builds its nest. From Nigeria, and I saw we had some Nigerian here, so meaning progress may be slow, but consistency leads to the completion of significant tasks. And then I have 3 more. One is, the chameleon looks in all directions before moving. The Ugandan proverb, and it means wise leaders assess situations from all angles before making their decision. So take a look around, stop and rest, and take a look as you're resting, and see what is the lay of the land before going ahead with whatever it is. Also, take a minute to look around inside yourself. Is this right for me? Is this working for me to do this right now at this time? And that will help you also be sustainable in whatever you choose to do. And then the elephant does not limp when walking on thorns. That's an Ethiopian proverb, and it means strong leaders remain steadfast and undeterred, even when facing difficulties. And the last one is from a Swahili proverb, which is to get lost is to learn the way. To get lost is to learn the way. So, meaning that mistakes and challenges are part of the learning process, right? Mistakes and challenges are part of the learning process, and they lead to growth. Getting tired of my voice. So, key insights on trends in Africa are that the Globe project's analysis of the sub-Saharan Africa cluster, which includes countries like Namibia, Nigeria, South Africa, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, has reported that the preferred styles contributing to outstanding leadership in this region include, and I thought I'd share this because it's what the trend is right now, it's the lay of the land. So people like either charismatic, value-based leaders, and they choose these ones for visionary, performance-orientated, and who have integrity. So that's one of the types. And then there's the team-oriented leaders who develop cohesive teams with strong administrative and interpersonal skill sets. Are you one of those? And then there are the participative leaders, these who involve others in decision-making processes. So they're very collaborative type. And then there's the humane-oriented leaders. According to their research, those who care and show charismatic compassion happen to be more pronounced in this area of Africa compared to others. I don't know why that is. Maybe you could share. So I now want us to go on to what is your experience, right? I'd love you to share your experience, where you're coming from, and who you are, where you're coming from, and maybe one challenge you're facing in the African context of resilience. So I'd love us to be able to open the floor, Daniel, and
all right.
share.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. For that insight and the proverbs you have given. My favorite is that there is no shortcut to the top of the palm tree. I love that. Yes. Now, of course, we open the ground for us. You can introduce yourself, the country you're coming from. And if you have any question for Thea, or you want to have a small contribution, let's be mindful of time as well. So the ground is open. You can raise your hand in the chat box. You can raise your hands in the reaction part, then she will see and allow you to speak. Yes, remember when you're speaking, you have to unmute yourself. Thank you. Yes, now we're on.
Huh. Okay, for some reason, everyone, I want to see it, put it everyone side. Do you have a challenge that you're facing right now? Because we can do a problem shifting session if you'd like. I think, Daniel, I'll let you handle this because I can't see you.
Yeah, I just yes. I encourage us to share our experiences and ask questions following the presentation. So yeah, it is open now. The ground is open for anyone to ask a question or share, or you have anything you want to share. You have something to add, or you want to basically ask a question. You're welcome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for. I've seen some of Bonki. I've seen your message. Thank you. And I guess a lot of people are reaching out to network, and I will share my contact details with everyone at the end.
Yeah. And before there was Ramatu
End of the session.
Haruna. She shared that she think resilience is being more of humane, while toughness is like robotic. What do you say
Yes,
of that?
exactly. That's a good assessment. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
you got it. I don't know what other people think, because yeah, we had a big discussion with my husband on this one today.
Mhm. Yeah. So I would want to ask. I've learned a lot from what you have presented. Given on the leadership track, let's talk of since we're talking about change, how to inspire change in Africa, and what is your view on the current, uh, the previous coup d'etats that has rocked Western Africa? I think 2 years now, like Mali, Burkina Faso, Chad, and it seems that the population really like these coup leaders, and they have proven that they're doing a lot of work. They have proven that they are pro people and are pro development. So, according to you, do you think this is something that should be encouraged? Because those are young people, most of them are below 40, who have who have taken power through coup d'état. So, do you think is it necessary for the young African leaders from other countries to topple the government if they're not working for the people?
If they are not working for the people,
Yes.
absolutely not. I think that,
Yeah.
that doing anything by force should not be the way for anyone in the world. I think we, we just proved that in Botswana, that we could, people had an opinion, but they kept it largely to themselves. Nobody spoke up and said anything while this guy was in power for the last 5 years. And then boom, when it came to the elections, what happened was they came together as people and a lot of the young people actually came together behind the scenes to vote this guy out, but make sure that there was no rigging, because they actually went deep into the background and audited things online and found out stuff through banks and whatever. And they had people in every place to make sure that the voting was transparent and proper. And these other guys were trying this stuff. They really tried, but it didn't work. And so I think Botswana right now feels like they are on top of the world, because they've managed to do this peacefully without toppling, without a coup d'etat or anything like that. So it's possible, and I think that we need to demonstrate more of that. And then, but I know that West Africa, that has not been the way, and it's not the reality there. It's a different state of affairs over there. It's very volatile place to be. I live there, I know. Yes, and please, anyone who would like to share, please go ahead and share their perspective. Your perspective, even in the chat is fine. You don't have to talk up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We have hands up, by the
the
way. Also, people with hands up, they can go ahead and talk.
Oh, yes. Ramata, yes. Ramatu. Sorry, I'm going to put my glasses on.
Hello, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening.
I think you pronounced it well already. It's called Ramatu.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm Ramatu Haruna, and I am from Nigeria.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so it's a really great conversation, and you expanded much on resilience. I think last year I ended last year with a program, an initiative that had to center on resilience. And I'm very much happy that this year it's starting again with something like this. So it's telling me that resilience is something that I as a person need, Nigeria as my country need, and the whole of Africa needs as well. So I would really commend you for your presentation, even though we have not seen the PowerPoint, but would like to have it personally.
Yes,
And I would also want to, okay.
I have put it into the chat box, so it should be there by now.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. I will get it. Thank
But
you.
I will share. I think we can do that for everyone. How will we do that, Daniel?
Yeah, we can share that in a WhatsApp group later, so that everyone can get it. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Ramat.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And
So I
I'm
would also
glad that you are. Yes.
Okay, one more thing I would like to talk about. One of the quotes that you said, to be lost is to find the way.
Hmm.
I never saw it like that. I mean, I never heard that quote before, and it made me feel like, okay, because it made me understand that anytime I was lost personally, I did find the way because I discovered better ways to do it before. So it made I am more enlightened, and I believe we as a country, Nigeria as a whole, we would find our ways through governance, economy, when we are lost as youths. I believe that we have been lost for years, but since the current government came in, the previous before the current, our eyes have been opened. We have gone through hardship, but that I think that's our moment of wilderness and that's our moment of lost. But that has made us to open our eyes, and that has made us to understand better, to do things that would better us as youth and that will better the country. So I believe if Nigeria can adapt to this and adopt this method, and yes, the whole continent and other countries in Africa, I believe to be lost. I believe we were all lost, or maybe some of the countries in Africa in this continent are already lost. So we should not dwell in this lost state, but we should try to find the way that works best, that can better
Absolutely.
Africa, that can better our personal countries as a whole. So thank you very
Yes.
much, ma'am.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
And we okay. Yeah.
Yes,
Hello,
go ahead. Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Excellent. My name is Thea Khama. I'm from Botswana. I'm actually Thea's husband. Very nice, my dear. Good presentation. I just wanted to pick up on the previous speaker regarding and also what Thea had mentioned about the youth and female participation within governments and in parliament. I was a Minister of Environment, Wildlife and Tourism in Botswana from 2013 to 2018, and then Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture from 18 to 19. And one of the things that I found very, very evident every time was you need to remember when leaders in Africa, how they are selected and where they come from. And this also speaks to the age. And because you're in the political system, you kind of stay in that system and you are sourced from that system. That system may not necessarily be the most advised. You may not be most advised or wise on the goings on of everybody's issues in your country or in your environment, let alone your community. So when you get into that position of governance, you already have an authority, but you may not have been necessarily well prepared for that role. And then you find yourself meeting these challenges. And what does one do normally when you meet a challenge is you want to defend yourself. And that is where the listening to other people becomes a challenge. Now, I was so blessed because I had a wife have a wife there who I listen to. I had my son Kaidi and my daughter Talia. So I had resident advice in the house, but I learned to also ask questions and accept that if my view wasn't right, I should listen to other views. And I think that is the point that we need to also take off, is to say it's not wrong to be, it's not wrong that if you are wrong, you need to see yourself not in a situation of being in fault or having a fault, but you have been advised or been educated of other worldly ways or current trends. So I was a big advocate of the youth and their participation. So I think that once we allow ourselves, you need to be educated when you're going into areas of authority, and therefore I think then it broadens your mind so that you're able to understand and accept other ideas. I'm going to stop here, but I just wanted to. The previous speaker spoke
You
about.
see these parliamentarians, these politicians, they can go talking.
Oh yeah,
Lavi,
oh yeah.
I want to take another person, Bonki, soon. So if you don't mind to conclude what you're saying.
All right. Thank you, leaders. Thank you so much. My name is Bonke. First of all, allow me to make a disclaimer. I have a flu, so I don't know whether you can hear me correctly.
Yes, I can hear you beautifully.
All right. Thank you. So my name is Bonke Muhumre from Kenya. I'm currently living in this country as an urban refugee with origin from DRC, having lived in this country for more than a decade. Basically, what we do here, we will try to uh, empower the youth, especially the vulnerable communities, the IDPs, and the refugees as well, through our nonprofit organization known as Importance Leadership. Basically, we focus with advocacy and leadership development, climate action, mental health initiatives as well. So honestly speaking, glad the fact that you spoke about collaboration, where we need to engage with like-minded people, the youth. I'm extremely happy seeing such people. In Africa, we rarely have those conversations where we talk about policy formulations and also resilience. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from you guys. I'm extremely happy, and I want to get that PowerPoint presentation, go through it, learn a lot. So actually, when the lady who spoke before your husband, I've forgotten her name, she was talking about inclusion into the government, and actually there is a question that one of the colleagues asked me today. She stated like as follows. She said that the government should stop recycling old politicians into state jobs and employ youth, because this is the only way the government will inject new blood and energy into the economy. And I'm actually, when she asked me that question, I was wondering what will be my response. So I'm also posing the same question to you guys. How are we going to, why are these old politicians being recycled into the government state jobs? And then by doing so, we are likely not to have fresh blood and also energy into the economy. So what can we do? Is it public campaigns? What exactly? So I need to hear your views. Thank you so much, guys, and I thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you. And yeah, I will take Ashanafi next, but I'm going to just ask TK to respond to that quickly, if you would.
Oh yeah, thank you. It's a very good question. One of the things in politics is that it's an all boys club, and you tend to want to reward those that have rewarded before, those that have provided for you before, and that could even be from family members, and also it becomes an issue of communities. It may be a particular tribe, and so on and so forth. So the point that I really wanted to say in conclusion to what your question was about, how do we change it? It's a mindset. Now, I know that I had met President Kenyatta at some time, and I had the opportunity to fly with him, and he was very young in thinking, modern in thinking and we had an amazing discussion when we were discussing this issue of the youth and empowering youth. But remember something, remember one thing, the institution of government is so old, it's so old-fashioned. Parliament is so old-fashioned. Until we change those things, it becomes unattractive to a lot of people. So we need to also fashion it in an African way that it becomes attractive and inclusive at a more meaningful stage than rather later on in life when you say, I've done what I need to do, now I'm going into politics. If we turn it around and said, this is going to be something that I would like to do and contribute meaningfully, and the system allows me to do so, then I think we're going to have the change. So the system itself, I think, is really where we need to look at making change. Thank you.
So, so thank you. And I'd love to take Ashanafe Daba.
Yes, thank you, Tia.
Love to hear your.
It was very nice having you. I was having a very pleasurable time.
Oh.
Thank you for that. I was first thinking that when a light-colored person, and I was expecting that you were from Europe or US as usual. But listening to the story that the resilience of the other way, because most of our colleagues go to abroad and they say we were the only black in the class. We were the dark-colored person, but you have been experiencing the same thing, but having a light skin. That is a very good, fascinating story. And thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
no, it's been a pleasure, and I feel, because I've lived in Africa, I feel more African than I feel American, and yet I still hold that passport. But I do feel so adopted by African people, and especially Bangwato tribe, which is the tribe that my husband comes from, and has chieftainship in, and they take me as their queen mother. So they just sort of adopted me, and I am also adopted. So I'm actually Mexican heritage. Originally, but and Native American heritage, but but I grew up in a Western situation.
You are a good example of what we say, a citizen of the globe, or global citizen.
Yes,
so that's a very good experience. Thank you. So one thing that I want.
Yes. Okay. Please. Yeah.
Sorry, Daniel. So one thing that I want to raise as a question is. When we talk about resilience, I'm from Ethiopia, so we have an issue related with peace and stability now and then, and still you have to work about developmental issues. You may not go business as usual because you may not go out business as usual. So how are you dealing with that? I want to know some experience in that situation when there is instability, hostility in a nation where you are working, and still, but you have to do the day-to-day activity. How you manage to do that? This is my concerning question. Thank you very much.
For me, like I said, it comes back to the values, going back to your personal values system, and really knowing who you are as a person. Like, who am I as a person, and who am I going to be in this situation that I find myself in? Because it's tough, and you've got to still when I was taken in and I was in the cells and things, and I didn't know where I was going to be. I made a decision in myself at that moment that no matter what happened, like, I thought I was going to be disappearing. Like, the Americans didn't come find me, nothing. It was just like nobody knew where I was. No one was told where I was. So literally, I was the prisoner of these people, and I didn't know what it was for, or what they were going to do to me, or where they're going to take me. And in that moment, I decided that, you know what, I'm still going to be giving light. That's what I do. That's what I am about. That's what my whole journey has been for. and is to share that light with others. So I'm going to share the light with the other prisoners, other people in the cell. I did. So I met two wonderful young ladies. One was a Zimbabwean lady who was stuck in there because she was illegal in the country and like a refugee, but she had her own situation. I got to know her, and she was so scared in that situation, and she was a young lady. The other lady was somebody else that I got to know in there, a Botswana lady. Everybody was just being held, not for anything that they really did that was so bad, but I ended up holding them and hugging them, and we cuddled on the floor to keep warm because it was freezing cold, and we had bare feet, and we were like stuck in there with no blankets, no nothing. So in that moment, I made that decision to be that person, and I think you have to keep making that decision over and over when you're faced with those kinds of difficult, terrible situations where they're very uncertain. You don't know when the end of it's going to be or how you're going to come out of it. That's my answer to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Thea. Before I welcome our president and founder to thank you, I want to appreciate that. I know all of us want to speak, but also time's against us. But we really want to. I come from South Sudan. I have a lot of problems. If I'm to start explaining, we have a lot of issues coming up, and and your husband, I would love him to, if he could share his experience. He's a leader. He must be a very good mentor. He can mentor some of the young people here as well. For this, let me request the founder and the president, Mr. Enoch, to come and conclude for us this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, I couldn't stop. I was hiding over there and listening the whole conversation. So just want to thank Tia for your time. It also shows leadership, and I think the best trait of leaders is service, sacrificing your time out of this beautiful weekend and share your knowledge and your experiences. And thank Daniel for moderating the panel very well. I had a lot of questions about leadership, young people taking space, which is always because the old guards they can't. When you see a 70-year-old or 80 years leading a country, those guys cannot lead us to the future because they cannot be part of the future. No, they can't lead us to the future, which they are not part of. But also a question raises, are young leaders ready to take up leadership? That's also a question because we could be saying all sorts of things like we want to take up leadership, we want to go into that positions and make change. So are we ready? And are we ready? Are we ready politically? Are we ready psychologically? Are you ready financially? Are you ready in all circumstances? Also tick out some boxes so that we are not just because when I see a lot of young people and in many conferences, in many forums, for them, they kind of think, I might be wrong, but majority might think that just by the virtue of being young, you have a privilege to go into leadership. It's not true. Leadership is not biology. It's psychology. It's consciousness. It's discovering your purpose and serving your vision. So just because you are young doesn't give you guarantee to take up leadership because you might be the worst if you are not prepared. So the question should not be zeroed on age. Of course, I don't encourage 70 or 90-year-old people to take up leadership, but I'm speaking as young people. Let us not focus more on our biological age. Let's focus more on what we can discover, what we can do, and become. So that's where we'll become great leaders. So thank you, I guess. Thank you, the Khamas, TK, Nice virtually meeting you. I've heard a lot of interesting things. So thank you very much, everyone, and I hope to see you next weekend. Yeah.
And I've
Thank you.
shared in the chat for everyone, my contact is
Sure.
my website. And also I'm available LinkedIn. I'm available on other platforms like Instagram and Facebook. So you can find me there and reach out to me if you need to. If you'd like to get the presentation, I can send it to your email, but you need to send me your email personally then.
Awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you. And you can
All right,
find my
thank
book
you.
on Amazon. If you want to read about resilience, it's my memoir. It's there. It's called